we need to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 because, good God, the discourse surrounding this game has been relentless. In particular, the RPG community is at war over it. Let's just say some takes have not been well received, and I'm not just talking about the Shroud discourse.
Do not let that Expedition game win Game of the Year. Do not let it.
So, let's get into it.
You're fighting to change things.
For those who come after. Right?
I thought I was used to losing people.
Yeah, me too.
Clair Obscur revived the turn-based genre. A simple claim, yet somehow the root of endless arguments. Yes, Clair Obscur exploded in popularity and earned mountains of well-deserved praise. But the idea that it revived turn-based RPGs is simply incorrect. Just last year, Metaphor Fantasio was a Game of the Year contender, another mainstream turn-based RPG. The year before that, Baldur's Gate 3 actually won Game of the Year and is widely considered one of the greatest RPGs ever made. Going further back, in 2017, Persona 5 transformed the series from a niche franchise into a global phenomenon capable of competing with titles like Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey. And that's only mainstream releases. You also have Octopath, Yakuza, Legend of Heroes, and countless indie standouts like Undertale, Omori, and more recently, Look Outside. The turn-based genre wasn't dead, so it couldn't be revived. That said, while Clair Obscur may not have revived the genre, the argument that it could revolutionize it is far more compelling, and this idea also has stirred plenty of debate. All things considered, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is one of the most popular turn-based RPGs in years. Even Persona 5, a game which can make very similar claims, pales in comparison to Clair Obscur's immediate success. The game isn't even a year old and it's already surpassed 5 million copies sold. For context, the original Final Fantasy X, one of the most beloved entries in the franchise, sold around 8 million copies in its entire lifetime. Clair Obscur achieved comparable reach in mere months, without a pre-existing fanbase and minimal marketing. For many people, the game felt as though it appeared out of nowhere, and it even managed to overshadow the highly praised Oblivion remake, an incredible feat given how popular the Elder Scrolls franchise is. All of this is to say, Clair Obscur has brought unprecedented attention to the turn-based space, arguably more than any game since Final Fantasy VII, and technically Baldur's Gate 3, but that game is kind of a special case. So how does its popularity correspond to it being revolutionary? Simple. Widespread success increases the likelihood that its design ideas influence the broader genre. A common counter-argument is that Expedition 33 doesn't introduce anything new. The developers cite inspirations like Lost Odyssey and Legend of Dragoon, and detractors point to these influences as evidence against the game's innovation. But those titles are cult classics, games that went either unappreciated or were overshadowed at launch and, as a result, never had mainstream impact. Their innovations faded before they could shape the genre. That's where Clair Obscur shines. Instead of letting these ideas vanish into obscurity, Expedition 33 modernizes them and brings them into a massive audience. This is why many players consider it innovative. Innovation doesn't require inventing something new, it requires shifting established norms. And Clair Obscur absolutely challenges conventional expectations of turn-based combat. With its popularity, it could inspire more developers to break from tradition and pursue new ideas, ushering in a fresh new wave of experimentation. And by definition, that would make the game an innovation. But ultimately, it's just too early to know. Both sides of this debate overlook the simple fact that we don't yet know what impact the game will actually have. You can speculate all day, but only time will really tell. Personally, I believe it will at least somewhat revolutionize the genre, much like Persona 5 did. Both games redefine perceptions of what a turn-based RPG could be and have elevated the genre into the mainstream consciousness. Going forward, Clair Obscur will function as a benchmark. For indie teams, it's proof that a small studio can dominate the industry, and for AAA developers, it's a standard of polish and mechanical inventiveness they'll be expected to match. Like Persona 5, Clair Obscur's success will also likely lift other turn-based games. Its popularity has increased general awareness and enthusiasm for the genre, likely leading players to explore similar titles after finishing Expedition 33, and honestly, that's something everyone should want. Colonizer 33 is a term that, if you're lucky or simply not extremely online, you may have never heard. It emerged as Clair Obscur gained traction and began to receive constant praise. The term is essentially a response to the claim that Expedition 33 revived turn-based RPGs, arguing that people only liked it because it wasn't Japanese. Predictably, this sentiment escalated into outright hostility towards the game, even though the original frustration was aimed at the community, not the game itself. At face value, this Colonizer 33 idea is ignorant for multiple reasons. First, while it is true that some people avoid Japanese games because they consider them weeb titles, that demographic is tiny and shrinking. This mindset is mostly tied to older gamers who grew up thinking the only acceptable anime was Dragon Ball. Today, anime is mainstream, so much so that one of the highest grossing films of the year is literally an anime's finale. Second, the whole people only like it because it's Western argument falls apart instantly when you look at recent hits. Last year, Metaphor ReFantazio broke into the mainstream and became a Game of the Year nominee. Before that, Persona 5, the poster child of so-called weeb games, became one of the most popular turn-based RPGs ever made. And we're currently living in a gacha-dominated era where millions of players spend their days pulling for anime waifus or watching VTubers. The fact is, anime is no longer a niche. It's one of the largest entertainment forces in the world. So claiming people only played Clair Obscur because it's Western and not anime is presumptuous at best and outright ignorant at worst. Now, none of this means the Clair Obscur fanbase is blameless. Whenever something becomes critically acclaimed, it inevitably attracts an intensely dedicated, often unbearably loud subset of fans. A perfect example of this is Undertale. After its rise to fame, vocal members of the community would harass people for not playing the game quote-unquote correctly, or for not playing the game at all. It got so bad that many refused to touch the game purely to avoid its community. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Expedition 33. Worse, the backlash to those fanatics is just as loud, and the result is a pointless mudslinging contest where everyone gets messy, whether they're involved or not. Clair Obscur is overhyped. Of the discourses surrounding Clair Obscur, this is the one that frustrates me the most. A game is quote-unquote overhyped when it fails to deliver on its promises, like No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk 2077 when they first launched. But in the case of Expedition 33, nearly everyone who actually plays the game agrees that it does live up to the praise. By definition, that means it's not overhyped. This narrative is part of a larger trend of people attacking the game simply because they dislike the community or because it's popular. Now, there's nothing wrong with valid criticism, but that's not what's happening. Instead of questioning genuine issues like a lack of quality of life features, people latch on to flimsy complaints such as the combat is boring because you can just parry everything. This sounds damning until you realize how unrealistic it is. Yes, you can parry everything, but that doesn't mean most players are going to have an easy time doing so. It's like saying Sekiro is easy because you have to parry everything. True in theory, incredibly difficult in practice. And while there is an argument that the endgame can be a little overboard with it, to act as though it's the only aspect of the gameplay is just wrong. Other criticisms include claims about the game's balancing, with it being too easy to become overpowered. And while that's fair, the idea that this problem is unique to Clair Obscur is absurd. Turn-based RPGs have always suffered from balancing issues. In Final Fantasy X, maxing out the sphere grid turns you into a literal god. In Persona or SMT, you'll usually end the game immune to everything while abusing charge, and in Trails, you can become effectively immortal through evasion or delay loops. And I could go on forever. Another complaint is that finishing all side content before the final battle leaves the ending underwhelming. Again, this is true, but it's also true for almost every RPG with optional content. None of these flaws should be ignored, but pretending they're unique to Clair Obscur is simply dishonest. The fact is, if Expedition 33 were truly not the level of quality that people claim it to be, it wouldn't have maintained this level of praise or continued to receive such acclaim. Look, despite the exhausting discourse, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a phenomenal game, and Sandfall Interactive deserves every ounce of praise they've received. I encourage everyone to ignore the noise and simply enjoy the experience for themselves. Don't let others, whether fans or critics, dictate how you feel. At the end of the day, the only opinion that matters when it comes to your enjoyment is your own. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.